All right, Senator, thank you for your time. We're here with Senator Marco Rubio. And we're first talking about, boy, in this pandemic, folks are possibly looking forward to another relief package, a COVID relief package. I know you've been kind of outspoken on where you'd like to see things go when asked. Let me ask the same question to you. Where does that stand on Capitol Hill? From someone sitting here in Florida, what can they expect with a relief package, if one at all?
Well, what's happening is on our side of the aisle, on the Republican side, we're trying to put together something that can pass, that obviously can pass out of the Senate, that's more tailored, maybe not as as big as what the $3 trillion House proposal is, but something that does things like another round of PPP, help to hospitals and money for testing and to reopen schools and things of that nature that would be helpful towards that. Potentially individual relief to people, another round of that. Some extension of the unemployment benefit, the additional unemployment benefit, maybe not up to 600, but some additional amount beyond what the state provides. Unfortunately, as of right now, the position that both Senator Schumer and Speaker Pelosi, the two Democratic congressional leaders, have taken is either they get $2 to $3 trillion for what they insist on, or we do nothing at all. And it's my view that they've calculated that they think they'll be better off in November if we do nothing at all, because things will get tough and people will blame the president. Now, I'm not sure that's a view that's shared by rank and file Democrats, the rank and file members, or all of them, but it's certainly the position they've taken. So hopefully they'll come off that position. We're going to give it our best shot, hopefully as early as next week, to try to see if we can get something going in the Senate, and we'll see what happens. But right now, it's not very encouraging as long as they're dug in that way.
Okay. Paycheck protection program is something you are feel strongly about, and I want to ask you about how has the oversight gone for that so far? Some small businesses have received and benefited greatly. Others possibly still waiting to see some sort of other round of relief package or get approved, wondering why they weren't approved. We actually did a story where a religious organization received more than $500,000 to not lay off their workers locally here in Boca Raton. So just the broad question is, how do you think the oversight of that money is going, and how do you see that moving forward?
Yeah, well, first of all, anyone who qualified got it. You had to have applied. And what we did find is that a lot of people didn't think they qualified or didn't even try because they didn't have a banking relationship or just felt that it was too complicated, or frankly weren't even aware of it in many cases. But it's basically the amount of money you got was based on how many employees you had. So it wasn't just a random amount. There isn't even an approval process where they decide someone gets it and someone doesn't. This is very simple. If you're a business, you qualify under a certain size, 500 employees or less, you qualified for up to 2.5% of your 2.5 times your monthly payroll, period. And that included not-for-profit organizations. You mentioned a church. It also included some newspapers and organizations like that. So we didn't really discriminate between industries. So what we're hoping now is that there are some businesses who need a second round of support because they've been shut down a second time because they're facing uncertainty. And so our second round proposal is to limit it even further to businesses with 300 or employees or less, and who can prove that during at some point, some 3-month period during the first 6 months of this year, they saw a reduction of revenue of at least 35%. So we're hopeful that we can, and the maximum loan is no longer 10, now it's only 2. Right. So again, we're hopeful that we can get, that's part of this. I'm pretty confident that no matter if there is a final deal, that PPP will be a part of it, because I think we're very close on that issue. That's not what's holding these things up.
Okay, very well. We're all here because of, at this point, because of the pandemic, because of coronavirus, and, Florida has been a hot spot in many circumstances. Testing, a big hot topic, and most recently you have said that the federal government has procured 150 million rapid tests. You would like 10 million of those to come to Florida. In fact, you wrote a letter to President Trump about that. Expand on that thought. Do you think we need more testing in Florida? How do you see that's going?
Well, we need more of a different kind of testing. The testing where you drive up in your car and they swab your nose and you get the result in 48 or 72 hours is not very useful if you're trying to prevent an outbreak at a school or a factory or a place of work. So what you really need is sort of a rapid test that maybe isn't as sensitive as the more intensive test, but that will identify whether someone has enough virus that makes them infectious. And that's what the saliva-based test would do. and it gets you results at about $5 per test, so it's cheaper, and it would get you results in about 15 minutes right there on the spot. And so there's 150 million of them that are available. The federal government bought them all. And my argument is we're 7% of the country's population. We should get at least, something close to 7-8% of the tests, given the fact that we also have a lot of visitors. So we should at least start with 10 million of the first 150. And if we could deploy those to, for example, universities and school districts or health departments to work with school districts, it's something that school districts can design a way of identifying potentially infected people. Now, if you test positive with one of these things, you'd have to follow up with the more sensitive tests. But at a minimum, just the ability to screen is going to be very useful. And it's $5, so it's very cost effective.
Sure. Reopening isn't exactly left to the federal level. It's left to a majority of local. And today, even Palm Beach County commissioners are speaking about reopening into phase 2, where most of the state is. But as you know, Palm Beach County, Broward County, Miami-Dade County haven't moved into those phases yet. Your overall thought about the state of Florida from what you're seeing with coronavirus cases and testing about reopening back to levels that are comfortable for everybody, schools reopening? Well, that's a broad question, but what are you seeing from Capitol Hill and when you're looking here at Florida?
Well, look, the Florida numbers are unquestionably gotten better, but it's also eerily reminiscent of what we saw in late May. Two things are happening. Sort of COVID and the virus is no longer leading the newscast. More and more the attention now again is on unrest in the streets of another city. In this case now we're talking about Kenosha, Wisconsin, and some of the things that continue to go on in Portland. So that's now dominating the news. So what we saw last time is the combination of the news being about something else with the numbers coming down and some upcoming long weekend in which people got together with other people led to this explosion of cases 14 days later. We're back there again. And so I hope that this time we're a little bit wiser about that than we were the first time. This time it's Labor Day, it's not Memorial Day. This time it's Kenosha, it's not Minneapolis. But nonetheless, I think that sometimes what ends up happening, and we're all guilty of it, is as the numbers come down, you don't hear about the virus as much as you did a few days earlier. People kind of let their guard down a little bit. And sometimes we like to say they're being irresponsible. But look, if you pick some friend up and give them a ride somewhere, they're sitting in your car, some people, it feels strange asking them to wear a mask because it's almost like you're insulting them, But I think what you really realize, if that person tests positive, they're going to knock you out of commission for 14 days, whether you get infected or not. So just think about that. And that way we can sort of, hopefully this time, do it a little bit different.
Sure. And, a big turning point would possibly be a vaccine as well. There are companies here within Palm Beach County even that are trying to develop a vaccine, or at least the technology to help lead to a vaccine. Is it your thought when one is approved by the FDA that should be widespread, everybody should get it? Or what is your thought for, people even returning to work to get a vaccine when everything reopens? I mean, what are your general thoughts about that?
Well, a couple of things. I think the first is that the challenge here is a logistical one. We're going to have multiple vaccines eventually.
Sure. And
so the challenge is vaccines don't create immunity, vaccinations do. So you got to get people vaccinated. My sense is that we would prioritize those that we know are at highest risk of being hospitalized or dying, and prioritize that first and set up a system to get it there. And that would be probably the first wave. And if you can, let me tell you this, if you can get immunity to the people who are at highest risk of hospitalization or very negative outcomes because of their health conditions, and then follow that up by also prioritizing your healthcare workers and people on the front lines, you've changed the complete nature of this disease. That doesn't mean that someone who's 25 won't get COVID. They could, but the more people are immunized, the more the virus starts to burn out because it has no one to jump. It needs people to spread it to other people. So again, it won't make it zero, but it most certainly would collapse the hospitalization rates and the tests and sort of the strain that puts on our healthcare system. So that would be my sense of how it would first unfold.
Okay. Last question, unless you had anything to add. I mean, here we are, September 1st. When you say that, it's like, wow, the months we've been going through, we've been doing most of this since March, the lockdowns, reopenings. Your message to your constituency here in Florida. I mean, we're moving now into the fall months and where is the hope on the horizon? Where are you seeing there could be a big turning point in this pandemic for the state of Florida?
Well, let me first say 2020 has been a heck of a year. and we still have a big election ahead of us, which we know is going to be very close and conflictive. We face some extraordinary tests, and I get my hope from history. from the fact that not just Americans before us, but people before us have faced even greater challenges. That first pandemic 100 years ago happened in the midst of a world war. If you take that as an example, and people persevered and fought through it. We have a lot more. We're going to have a vaccine faster and a solution for this problem faster than they did 100 years ago. Luckily, we don't have a world war. Certainly the civil unrest in our streets is difficult to watch, and we should all be opposed to violence. I don't care what your cause is. None of it justifies attacking people. And that's true on every side, not even both sides, every side. I don't care what your motivation is. You're not allowed to burn people's stuff down. You're not allowed to attack innocent people in the street, or anybody for that matter. But we can get through it. We're going to get through it. Like, it's not going to be this way forever, but it will require us to persevere and fight through it one day at a time, like the people before us did. They faced even greater challenges. We'll overcome these. There are better days ahead. They're not next week. They're not next month. It'll take some time, but we will get there. And I am very hopeful, very optimistic that a year from now, when we do this interview, these are not the things. We'll be talking about other problems, but these will not be the problems we're talking about one way or the other. So we're going to get through it like the people before us did. We just got to grind through it every day.
All right. Thank you, Senator Rubio. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, we covered a lot. So
yeah, that was a lot. Thank you very much for your time.
All right.